Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we finished off in the previous session discussing the comparative analysis of traditional family life and modern family life. Now, is the goal of our life traditional family life or modern family life? Yes, neither. The goal of our life is Krishna consciousness. The goal is to become a pure devotee of Krishna. So, whatever helps in becoming a pure devotee of the Lord, a traditional family life model, a modern family life model, or some suitable blend of the two, whatever helps ultimately. Of course, ultimately, if all the family members are devotees, the traditional family model does make a lot of more sense. Then there is cohesion, there is unity, and all the benefits of the traditional family model can be obtained, and many of the disadvantages of the traditional family model can also be reduced. However, there are problems in the practical implementation of the traditional. I think we should have something with the children. So there are some practical problems with the implementation of the traditional family model. So whatever helps ultimately. If society can move towards the traditional model, keeping Krishna in the center, this is the ultimate solution for a stable Krishna conscious world. Where it is not possible in the present situation for any particular person or family to adopt the traditional model because it's not possible, then just go on with your life, but become Krishna conscious. Do everything necessary to hear and chant well, to practice the regulative principles well, and so on. So whether it's traditional or modern or a blend or anything, just chant Hare Krishna and become a pure devotee. Of course, to the degree our personal situation is not favorable, to that degree it will be more challenging and difficult for us. And to that extent also we will feel some of the difficulties of the modern family model, and we will have to cope with it. We will have to bear with it to go on with our Krishna consciousness. This one life we have to try to finish somehow or the other in Krishna consciousness. So I hope that I have conveyed a very balanced idea of the two. Now I would like somebody to come up and give a 2 to 3 to 5 minute summary of what I have concluded about different family models and styles and what you should do and so on. Just in 2 or 3 minutes, some conclusion. Just to know that just so that I can know that you have understood properly. Anybody would like to come and say? Anyone? Otherwise I'll pick someone. Somebody. You're living in Australia, you should be bold. Would you like to try? Yes? Just summarize in 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You got everybody's opinion, ideas on the various kinds of family life. That is the traditional family life and the modern family life. And the pros and cons of both were discussed. And also you have gone into details about the certain aspects of following both the systems. And the final conclusion you have given is that whether it be modern or traditional, the sum and substance is that we have to become Krishna consciousness within this lifetime. Otherwise, there's a risk of again coming into the pangs of birth and death. And that is, it doesn't matter whatever is the traditional or modern family life, but the main idea is to become a pure devotee of Krishna. That is the sum and substance of what you have told.
But nevertheless, in general, which model is more favorable?
Traditional is definitely more favorable.
Why?
Why? It has got, it fosters like the development of Krishna consciousness. And it is also time tested and proven also. But at the same time, in keeping the whatever is the development and things like that, we have to try to emulate the traditional as far as possible.
Yes. So thank you very much. Good effort. I think you've more or less summarized it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for giving the opportunity.
Hare Krishna. So this is the point. We should know that for something to be sustainable, the traditional model is necessary. But for now, we have what we have. Not everybody has access to a traditional family model, even if he wants to. If somebody suddenly wants to have it, from where will he or she get it? It doesn't exist for that person, especially in many of the Western countries. So what do? So they have to go ahead with their Krishna consciousness anyway and do their best. But still we should, even in our nuclear family model, try to develop some of those value systems and plus points of the traditional family model as far as possible, so that it can be a stable family life. We can get more and more of the benefits of the traditional model. Now, how you do it exactly, of course, will depend on each of you individually. You will have your own balance to strike. What are your views and takes on these things? Everybody's natures are different. But I have given some broad guidelines and principles based on which you have to make your decisions. Where you want to be, which part of the spectrum you want to be on. And as I said in the previous session, at the end, it's all a package deal. You want the benefits of the traditional family life, then you have to also tolerate the inconveniences. If you want the independence or the other benefits that come with modern family life, then you have to be prepared for the negative points of modern family life. You can't have one without the other. Both the things have to be there. So what do you prefer? You choose. At the end of the day, become Krishna conscious. With the mild warning that the modern system is always more unstable. And this, as you rightly said, is time-tested, the traditional model. So we can try to make a little harmonious blend of the two in the current situation, keeping in mind the practical realities. And now, that said, we would like to take a look at some of the issues that you had raised in your first breakout session and which are yet left to discuss. So now we will apply this perspective of traditional versus modern family life and the values and role models and everything that goes with it, and try to see how we're going to apply it to these other things. Okay, let's start with one of the issues that was raised was career versus Krishna consciousness. Should we be ambitious in our career or our jobs? And how should we interact with our work colleagues? Should we attend parties and so on? Because if we don't do that, we may not get promotions, we may not be considered for good positions and so on. So now I would like some of you to answer. Who would like to answer this question? Career ambition. How much career ambition should a devotee have or not have? Someone, yes. The mic please. Now based on our Krishna conscious understanding and also particularly the understanding of the previous few sessions.
Thank you, Maharaj. Actually, we should be the best in whatever we are, whatever career we pursue, but not to the not over and over. We should try to come up in our career also in such a way that it should not affect our Krishna consciousness. If it means that we are going to over and over and we are not able to perform our sadhana, then we should not go for it.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Any other points? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, in my experience, the Australian working culture is quite tolerant to various diversities that we have, and it I don't think affects that much in career progression as long as our work ethics are high and we put in the fair effort, and of course, as Mataji has said, as long as it doesn't involve extra endeavor, I really don't think it is an impediment towards getting in higher ranks, even at the corporate level.
Okay, yes. So we can sum it up to say that basically, do it with a sense of detachment, do it with a reasonable and fair degree of endeavor that is necessary for you to do your job properly. You can't be seen to be negligent and irresponsible in your job. You have to do it well. At the same time, you have to see that you don't over-endeavor, that you don't become over-attached to the job, and then that the progression in your career becomes your ambition or your goal. Your goal should always be Krishna consciousness. So we have to try to see that this career or job does not become an impediment for our Krishna consciousness. And you have to make suitable adjustments accordingly. Generally, when we talk of career ambition, we are talking of the word ambition is connected somewhat to the mode of passion. Generally, the general connotation of the word, he's very ambitious. When you say, it means he wants to be a big person, he wants to rise very high. So in that sense, the devotee is not interested in career ambition. The devotee understands that according to destiny, the position will come or not come. With reasonable endeavor, if we are having good work ethics, that's correct. And if we are doing hard work properly, responsibly, then the progress will come if it has to come. But we should not be unnecessarily absorbing our consciousness in trying to see how can I reach to the top and how can I do this and how can I make progress, and then that spoils our consciousness. Right? And then what about associating with work colleagues and going for parties? What about that? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhuji, as Viraj Prabhu said, from Australian context, it's very tolerant, and from my experience, I'm in IT, so we often have these quarterly celebrations, monthly team meetings, but I'm finding personally that people are very tolerant. People at the office, they will often ask, what are your meal preference? Oh, he doesn't drink that, so we have to arrange something for him. So I think that way, personally, I'm finding it's very tolerant. And from previous work experience in the country, I think this place is more tolerant. So there is no pressure as such that we have to behave the way others are behaving.
Right, okay, that's good. So even at parties and so on, you're not obliged to.
No.
Are you obliged to join?
Well, yes, Prabhu. I mean, sorry, Maharaj, sorry. Maharaj, yes, we are obliged to join because it is considered to be a team, but if I'm there, then they order juice for us. But then I also consider it's good for the workplace, working environment, because then we get to know each other. I mean, we are people located remotely, working from Melbourne, Sydney, some people work from home office. So I think that's a good opportunity to know each other at a personal level. And sometimes we do get to discuss Krishna consciousness, to be honest. We celebrated Janmashtami last year, so I went to work and I told them we celebrated Janmashtami, we had 150 people, we invited mayor, we had these people, so I think that generated some interest. So yeah, I think it's quite positive.
So basically I would say you have to take your own judgment. But you have to be cautious. The moment you see the fire alarm starts ringing, the moment little smoke, the fire alarm goes off. So your alarm should be strong. The moment you see things are going in a way that's disturbing your consciousness too much, then you just move away and see that you don't do that. You have to use your judgment to see that you can touch the water and not get wet. Some degree of wetting unavoidable because you are there. But as far as possible, try to be dry. Right? So that's the answer. Okay, let's go to the next one. Time management. This came up. Prioritizing choices. This was a common point amongst many of the groups. How to manage your time. Actually, a couple of days ago, we had a program at the residence of Govinda Hari Prabhu and Raga Manjari. And this was the topic, basically, balancing our material and spiritual lives. And as far as time management goes, I had given an example which I would like to repeat. Or rather, if anybody was present that day and you would like to explain that in your own words, you can try. Who would like to try to do that? Yes, okay. Okay.
I've noted down a few points, Maharaj, so I'll just take note.
No, without noting, without reading.
Okay, the daily task that we have to perform is japa. So once we have balanced out the time when we start, because that is unavoidable, so we have to do it every day. So if we finish off the japa, keeping it as a first priority, then we can move on to the other tasks, like health is the next one. So we have to cook prasadam, offer it, and then have. And so that's the second thing, because that is also a daily task which we have to perform. So having said that, the other tasks are a career. Next is the sadhana. Sadhana includes japa, reading, and hearing. Family or relatives is compromisable. So that's not in the priority one. So in the order I'd go, first is the japa, next is the health, and the third is we are keeping as a career, so we have to go to office. So 9 to 5 we are at office, we do our tasks and come back. And then the remaining hours, we try to do our sadhana and the service. So a service, if if let's say it is Janmashtami or any other functions that we have overworked, then the next day you asked us to take rest and then gear up and come back to the come back to track and then keep up the routine. So basically, if we set this routine up, so it is easy for us to balance the next day. So we don't go off track on a japa and sadhana and seva. So we should not compromise on anything for too long. Basically, if we compromise on anything for too long, then it will affect. The only one thing that we can compromise on is the relatives or the third front where we don't have too much connections with. But family or japa or seva or sadhana should be taken care without stretching a lot.
Okay, very nice. And would you like to give the example? I've given an example. What was that example?
Kabaddi is an example.
Yeah, 1 minute. No, another example. Not kabaddi. Yes.
Sorry. If there is a big boulder and if there is a small gravel with the sand and water, the quite amount, and you ask them to put it in the glass or mouth, whatever it is. If somebody put water first, then sand, then gravel pebbles, and then the boulder at the end, then hardly can fit it in the glass. But if they prioritize this, and boulder is the bigger thing, bigger priority, so put the boulder first. Then second comes the second bigger one, then accordingly to the size, put everything, and at last the sand and water. So everything could fit nicely. So accordingly, in our practical life, we should prioritize, as you said, discuss which is the first priority, which is the second, third, and fourth, and so on. So if we prioritize our life work accordingly and put like this way, then everything will fit in time and balance everything efficiently.
Okay, very nice. So I'll just repeat the example of the jar, glass jar, and there are some bigger stones, some very small stones, some sand, some water. And you are asked to fill in all these things into the jar, and they can all be fitted in. But if somebody starts by putting in water first, whatever is the given amount of water, then puts the sand, and then puts the smaller pebbles, and then the bigger pebbles, then it will not fit in. But if you start with the larger stones, then put in the smaller stones so they fit into the gaps, then put in the sand, it trickles down through the gaps and goes to the bottom even, then put the water can occupy all the intermediate spaces. In this way, all four will be accommodated. Similarly, the bigger stones in our life are the more important items. Our sadhana, for example, that should be given first priority. So we should prioritize our things in accordance with this. Do the higher priority items first, automatically your time gets managed. In other words, our material life should revolve around our spiritual life and not vice versa. So we had talked about 6 departments of our life. Does anybody remember what were the 6 departments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
On the spiritual side, we had sadhana, seva, and preaching. On the material side, we had health, family, and profession.
Health, family, profession. Okay, profession includes the money and finances and everything, career, all that. So these 6 things. So you have to balance between that. And of these 6, which is the most important? Sadhana. So the first priority should be given always to our chanting, and if that is done, then everything else will be done. So if we do this one thing right, then everything else will be all right. So in this way, by giving priority to the really important things in our life and doing other things later, in this way we will be able to manage our time and prioritize our choices properly in accordance with our Krishna consciousness. What is that one principle based on which we should take all decisions, whether it is prioritizing which is more important, what to do when? What is that one principle which we talked about? Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
We need to ask ourselves, is this going to please Krishna or not?
Yes. Is this going to please Krishna or not? Now and in future. How is it going to affect my Krishna consciousness now and in future? Then take your decision. For example, we may say spiritual and material, but actually speaking, for a devotee, everything is spiritual because it has an impact on spiritual life. Suppose your health fails, you don't look after your health, then what happens? Can you say, what are the impact of health on the other departments? Can you have?
You won't be able to chant, you won't be able to do the seva, and you won't be able to preach as well.
Absolutely. And you won't be able to go to your job even. Right?
Yes.
And then even in the family you can't do much. So essentially, if your health is spoiled and you're not able to function, then it's very difficult to do anything else. So we may think that health pertains to the body and therefore it's material, but just think of it in terms of how it will impact your spiritual life, your Krishna consciousness, and therefore it's not really material. It is spiritual if you look at it from that point of view. However, if somebody wants to be healthy for something that is not connected to Krishna consciousness, just to look good or to enjoy sense gratification, then it's material. But if we are keeping good health so that we can serve Krishna better, so Krishna is pleased, then that is good. So in the course of our daily life, we have to give our time for good health, because otherwise it will adversely affect all the other departments of our life. Let's say your family situation is very disturbed, constant quarreling between husband and wife. So what happens? How does it impact the other departments? Can you chant peacefully? Instead of hearing Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you're hearing the voice of your spouse in the mind. Whatever the issues. So you see, everything has its impact on something else. So we have to carefully analyze these things with this one guiding principle, phrased in two ways. One is, will Krishna be pleased by this? And what will be the impact on my Krishna consciousness? And also on the Krishna consciousness of others. Alright? Okay, next. Dealing with non-devotees. What if the spouse is a non-devotee? Now, if the spouse is a non-devotee but is favorable or neutral, then things are manageable. But if the spouse is very much opposed to Krishna consciousness, very aggressively and actively opposed, I can see some heads nodding, then it's a difficult situation. We don't recommend divorce. That's not part of our system. At the most, somebody may separate and live together. Prabhupada says like that. But what to do? You just have to take it as Krishna's arrangement, that this has happened, this kind of marital situation has happened by past karma and by Krishna's arrangement. You have to tolerate and do the best you can, practically, to maintain the family life, also at the same time to maintain your Krishna consciousness also. So it's a difficult task, and we should just try to be sincere, pray to Krishna, and also be materially intelligent in terms of how to deal with the spouse so that the situation is not aggravated. Many times it may be because we ourselves have done something which has caused the spouse to become withdrawn from any possibility of coming into Krishna consciousness. Perhaps we were very fanatic about it, perhaps we were whatever we may have been. So we try to see that the spouse is made to feel easy. Then perhaps gradually there may be a softening of the attitude of the resistance. The second is other family members. Similar principle. If we are extremely aggressive and rigid, then it may worsen matters. We should be firm in our religious principles, in our spiritual life. We should not compromise because somebody says so, whoever that person may be. It may be a spouse, it may be anybody says, don't chant your 16 rounds. That we cannot listen to. That we have to do. But you have to also try to maintain good relations there. I mentioned this earlier in some other program, that Narad Muni says in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when relatives and others come and criticize you or tell you so many things, or give you unwanted advice about the way you should run your life, they're not happy with your Krishna consciousness, then you should simply say yes, 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 yes. But do you what you have to do. So don't quarrel with anybody. What is this Krishna consciousness you're doing? It's, you could have earned so much money if you had just given this time for the business. Yes, yes. And then quietly go and chant Hare Krishna. It's okay, you have become old and you want to do this, but why do you force your children to do this? Yes, yes, Hare Krishna. What they don't consider is that they have also become old, so why don't they do Krishna consciousness? They don't want the youngsters to do Krishna consciousness. They say it's only meant for those who have grown older, but you have grown older, so why are you not doing Krishna consciousness? Sometimes, more often than not, it's not worthwhile quarreling with anybody because it just spoils your peace of mind. Then it disturbs your relationships, disturbs your chanting, disturbs everything. Sometimes, however, you may need to explain things properly. So that may be helpful. Extended family, that's something that is probably something you could dispense with at least partly. Extended family meaning relatives and so on and so forth. If they interfere too much with your Krishna consciousness, and that happens often, at least in Indian families. In Western families, it may or may not happen so much usually. So we should intelligently handle it. Similarly with friends and colleagues. We have to be, not come across as being very, very rigid and preachy and so on. The best preaching is actually our behavior. There was one saint who said, he's an old saint, he's not from our tradition, but nevertheless it's a very useful quote. He said, we should preach all day long and when necessary, we should speak. Would anyone like to repeat this quote?
We should preach all day.
Mike?
We should preach all day long, and sometimes we should speak. When it's necessary.
We should preach all day long, and when necessary, we should speak. Who would like to give a purport to this? A brief purport, 1 or 2 line purport. Yes.
Basically that it's your behavior that's the best way to preach to someone, and that's what first counts. That's what they're going to see first. So before you speak, if your behavior is good, then it's going to have a better impact on the other person.
Yes, excellent, very good. Nice. Once there was a sadhu, and a lady came to him with her small boy, son. She said, this boy, all day long he eats sweets. He just wants to eat sweets all the time. So please do something about it. Can you do something, help this boy? So the sadhu thought over it for a minute and he said, okay, you come back next week. So she came back very expectantly and hopeful next week with the boy. The sadhu looked at the boy and said, so from today you will not eat sweets, all right? And he told the mother, okay, you go. So she said, well, just for this, you told me to come 1 week later? You could have said this last week. So the sadhu replied, till last week, I was also eating sweets. Not like the boy, but sometimes I was eating sweets. So if I'm eating sweets, how can I tell somebody, you stop eating sweets? My words will not have any effect, no potency. So then I had to stop eating sweets so that I could tell him, now you don't eat sweets. Then my word will carry some weight. So our behavior also practically is often the best preaching. Sometimes it takes time for people to be convinced. You see, it is important for us to know that preaching is not simply a matter of intellectual conquest. It's not a matter of defeating someone philosophically. Yes, that has its place in the history of acharyas and our sampradaya and other sampradayas too. And even in our preaching, we have to answer questions, we have to deal with the doubts that people have, certainly. But ultimately, it's not just that. It is a transformation of heart, how the person's heart is transformed. And a large portion of the transformation comes about because of the behavior and the nature of people that that person deals with. So therefore, philosophical understanding is essential. Philosophical presentation is also very crucial, but it's not everything. Behavior plays a very important role. So in dealing with non-devotee spouses, family members, friends, colleagues, we should deal with them in such a way that they will actually respect Krishna consciousness. They will respect us, and by being favorable, they will actually make advancement. Adau Shraddha Tatah Sadhu Sangha. So that Shraddha begins at that point. Okay, next, shall we go on? Okay, financial. How much to earn? How little to earn? Yes, that's also an important question. How much should you earn? Who would like to answer this question? Yes. Yes. I'm not asking for figures.
Just enough.
For what? For a Ferrari car, or just enough for a big bungalow, or
just enough to have prasadam and conduct our Krishna conscious activities.
Okay, and then what tomorrow? What if tomorrow there's a major medical issue, or what if your child wants to go to university and doesn't want to become a devotee, and even if he's a devotee, you want to send him to university?
Save a little bit.
Save a little bit. And what if you want to go to Vrindavan once a year, once in 2 years? Save a little bit more. But you're right. The essential principle is, thank you, earn enough and save enough. It's not a question of how much you earn really, it's a question of how much you save. Because if you're earning a lot and you're spending everything, then it's not of much use. So if you earn something and then save something for the future so that you can practice your Krishna consciousness, without the botheration of a job and all that in the future, then that may be helpful. So we can't give specific figures. Each one's situation is completely different. So do the best you can in your situation. We have to control greed and ambition. We have to realize that there is no limit to how much we would like for our security. Anything can be not enough, or anything can be enough. Depends. Everybody's point of view will be different. Be realistic, be practical. Try to live simple. This is the important thing. Simple living, high thinking. Prabhupada emphasized a lot on this. Try to simplify your life as much as possible. So your needs will come down. When your needs come down, your expenses will come down, your need to earn money will also come down. We had one devotee. He was a very aggressive preacher, very dynamic. Now today he's 75 years old. But he's still, of course, very enthusiastic. So this was about 20-25 years ago. In Mumbai, he went outside one railway station, one of the suburban railway stations, and he stood at an elevated point where everybody could see him. And he has a very loud, powerful voice. He doesn't need a mic. So he spoke aloud. He said, anyone who wants to double his money, come here, I will tell you how. And that's a good proposal. Who would not like it? So very soon a large crowd gathered around him. And he was speaking, come on, I'll tell you how to double your money. And then he said, okay, the way to double your money is as follows. Don't eat meat, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. And he spoke something about that. If you don't spend anything on these, 50% of your expenditure is cut, so that means half the expenditure means double the income. And the wonder is a few people became devotees after that. They came. See, where there is some sincerity and potency and some enthusiasm to do it, Krishna empowers and Krishna changes the hearts of people. I'm not recommending that you should do exactly that, but the point is that if you live a simple life, then automatically your problems are solved. What is simple? That's another question. What is simple for you may not be simple for me. That's always a question. So let's cut this argument at one level by saying, be satisfied with what you have now. What is the date today? 30th March 2013. Whatever you have as of today, be satisfied. Because if you say, well, be satisfied with that much or this much, so that's a doubtful thing. So whatever you have now, as on this date, be satisfied with it. Number one point. Number two, think carefully before you want to acquire something new or more. You want another car? Think, do I really need it? Do I really need it? Can I manage with my old car? Do I really need that really sophisticated iPad or whatever, some new kind of gizmo that has come about? Do I need that? Okay, or can I do the older model? So ask yourself this question every time you want to increase your expenses. I'm not saying that you should be miserly. You should be miserly for the right reasons. When it comes to spending unnecessarily, you should be miserly. But when it comes to spending for Krishna, no problem. You can do it according to your means. So if you cut down your requirements and your acquisitions, then that will also reduce your expenditure. Remember, there is a famous saying, There is enough in this world for everyone's need, but there is not enough in this world for even one man's greed. Right? So therefore, cut down your needs. Prabhupada says the modern civilization is characterized by people acquiring unnecessary necessities of life. Did you get this point? Unnecessary necessities. In other words, they are not necessities, but we consider them to be necessities. And now, what was earlier luxuries is now mandatory, a requirement. So life has changed so much, the whole world around us has become so complex. Earlier people were happy without computers, iPads, cars and so on and so forth, but now people hardly can do without it. So whatever it is in the current situation, try to make do with a simple life as much as possible. Your clothes, your household situation, you want to buy a big house, make a big house, think again. Do you really need such a big house? And then with all the maintenance problems that go with it and the mortgage payments that go with it and the anxiety, is it really worth it? Can't you make do with a smaller house? So for what am I really trying to get this very, very big house? So think like that. So when your mindset becomes like this, then automatically your need for money goes down. So you're able to save much more, and the pressure on you to earn more also reduces. So this is one important thing. Also in relation to that, I can mention financial management. Can you come back to that? Yeah. Also question of where to invest your savings, because devotees often ask this kind of question. I would say, don't put your money in risky things. That's a business. Even business, there is some risk, but devotees need not unnecessarily play with fire. Then it causes so much anxiety and you can't chant. When you have so many tons of loans on your head, it's very difficult to sit and chant peacefully. So therefore, invest your money safely, wisely, even if you get lesser returns. Doesn't matter. A few percent lesser returns is not such a big thing. Everything has a price, as we were talking earlier. So, peace of mind also has a price. And with that peace of mind, you can chant Hare Krishna better. See, no peace, even now, somewhere. Modern technology doesn't give us a moment's respite. Yes? Yes?
Okay, Maharaj, just one 30 seconds. Maharaj, just on that, my father used to tell us, one famous, I think this is from one of the poets, maybe Kabir. So my father would quote to us, he used to say, and it's in Hindi, साईं इतना दीजिए जा मैं कुटुंब समाए मैं भी भूखा ना रहूं साधु न भूखा जाए. So
yes, so the very nice quote, which means just give me enough to maintain my belly so that I should not go hungry and the sadhu should not go hungry. Meaning that I will have enough money to look after my family and I will also have enough money to give something in charity. Because charity is a part of Grihastha Dharma. So these are some thoughts. Remember that too much of speculation on the stock market and such things, I have seen devotees going through awful anxieties, trying to put money on the stock market and all sorts of things. They lost their money, they're on the streets, unnecessary. All because they felt, I want to do it for Krishna. I'll just earn enough money now, then I can give up my job. But then don't do it in such a risky way. So because that decision was driven by the mode of passion, and mode of passion brings grief. So we should be very thoughtful about how we deal with our money. After all, money is honey in this world. Yes? Okay. So, yes, distribution of household work and chores, especially when both are working. Yes, not something so major, something that can easily be discussed very nicely and soberly and sorted out if both are little mature. Not sorted out with fists, but sorted out with simple discussion. Something that can be done with some sensitivity, some mutual understanding, some tolerance, and so on. If we are very rigid about things, it's hard. With a little flexibility, little understanding, everything can be sorted out. What we have to make sure is that our false egos don't clash, that's all. We make sure that that is kept aside. And next one. Differences of opinions. Yes, that's a difficult one, isn't it? It may be due to different levels of advancement, maybe due to one partner being a non-devotee, the partners from a different sampradaya, or even if both are very staunch devotees, there may be differences of view in practical application of Krishna consciousness in day-to-day life. Somebody feels a child should be in this kind of education, someone says, no, that kind of education. Oh, we should have this kind of a house, no, we have that kind of a house. So there could be differences of opinion. Well, if it's any consolation, I would like to inform you that even in Goloka Vrindavan there are differences of opinion. But because those differences of opinion are centered around Krishna, and because there is no false ego, therefore everything is adjusted very easily. So similarly here, especially if they are devotees, husband and wife, then we should never let false ego come in the way. We should be flexible, be adjusting, and keep Krishna in the center and discuss. And where there is any doubt, take some advice from devotees, from senior devotees, and that can help to resolve the issue. As far as differences of opinion with non-devotee partners, that we have already discussed earlier. Yes, next one. Communication, lack of communication, miscommunication, mode of communication, etiquette. In my experience, lack of communication seems to be a very important factor that causes disturbance in relationships. And more often than not, the report is that the husbands are not communicative. And the wives always say, he doesn't talk, he doesn't communicate, I don't know what's going on. Sometimes it may be the other way around as well, but mostly whatever complaints I have received so far in all these years, many of them are like that. Maybe it's just the nature of the male and the female, we don't know. Whatever it may be, but this seems to be an issue. But again, if one is a little sensitive and a little understanding and a little sober and Krishna conscious, then these things should not arise. It's just a question of us being a little alert and aware and developing these interpersonal skills. Human relations, very important. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you would like others to come and talk to you nicely, you should also talk nicely to others. Mode of communication, the body language, etc. Sometimes we are so busy being devotees that we forget being human. So we should remember this point. We may be doing so much to not kill the animals and be vegetarians and protect the cows, and we are all against cruelty to animals, all for prevention of cruelty to animals, but we are cruel to our family members or cruel to our fellow devotees. Then what is the use? So we should be very considerate and kind, and we should be very cooperative. When Prabhupada said cooperate, it didn't mean only accept your family members. Even family members should cooperate for Krishna's sake. Then all these things can be easily settled. You see, sometimes when you're in the midst of your problem, reflect on the utter insignificance of your problem. However big your problem may be, reflect on its utter insignificance. In the time span of all the lifetimes you have spent on this material world, with reference to the ultimate goal of your life, which is Krishna consciousness, going back to Godhead, what is this little problem? So if you reflect philosophically also, that will help you to just move on and forgive and forget and move on. So in building relationships, this is very, very important. In Melbourne, at one place, I was quoting one saint who said, it is very useful when it comes to relationships, that there are two things you should always remember and two things you should always forget. There are some devotees from Melbourne here, right? You remember? So can you say what are the two things we should remember always and two things we should always forget? Please don't mix it up.
The good things that we done to others, we should forget. And the bad things others does to us.
Others
done to us.
Have done to us.
Yeah.
We should
forget.
Forget, yes. So these are the two things we should forget. And what are the two things we should remember?
The bad things that we done to the others, we should remember.
Bad things we have done to others, we should remember. And
the good things others have done to us. Remember.
Good things others have done to us, we should remember. Right? Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so who would like to say that now from what you... Somebody, please raise your hand. Just now, what he said.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So the things we need to forget is good things we do to others.
Right.
And the bad things somebody doing to us.
Right.
And the things we really need to remember is the good things somebody's done to us.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad things
we have done
to others.
Yes. Very good. Excellent. One more devotee, please. Repeat the same thing. Yes, here. Yeah, I think.
We have always remembered that the bad things we have done to others,
yes,
and the good things the others have done for us.
Yes, we should always remember. Yes.
And we should always forget what are the good things we have done to others and what are the bad things somebody have done for us.
Correct. Very good. So whether this is in the association of devotees or whether in the family. Yesterday you didn't wash the dishes and I did, and we remember 10 years. Didn't wash the dishes. On 13th of September 2004, you did not wash the dishes. Forgive, forget, move on. Yes, then relationships become simple, everything, life becomes simple. Otherwise you make everything very complicated. No, we can plan, yes, it can be a nice, it can be done nicely. Yes, this is the arrangement I do. We distribute it nicely so that everybody is comfortable. Nobody is uncomfortable. Are you talking from personal experience? Yeah, well, it's something that I'm giving the general principles. Now you have to work out, otherwise I will get into trouble. Okay, and also the etiquette. Etiquette meaning that one must remember who, one is speaking to someone elderly or so on and so forth. Basic culture and etiquette one must always keep in mind. All right, next one. Yes, question.
You said to maintain relationships, you need to forget, forgive, and move on. But how many times do you forget and forgive and move on?
As many times as you remember that you have to be Krishna conscious. So long as your goal in life remains that you want to be Krishna conscious and happy, you have to follow that principle. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, same question as her. As you were telling us before, that extended family or other family, when they are telling us not to do the chanting and all, you just have to say yes, yes, yes. And yesterday we were just discussing about the questions. Normally in the sharing of the work, when we tell something to the Prabhus, they say that yes, 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 and they don't do anything.
There's a very simple solution to that. The simple solution is, next day when the question comes, is the prasadam ready? Yes, 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 yes. Wait, prasadam. So, now, coming to all these issues, now look at the model of the traditional versus modern. Look at the role models and roles that are not role models, but roles that people play in the family situation. You know what the roles are in a traditional setup. You know what the roles are in a modern setup. And where are you? You are somewhere in between. So where do you want to be? As I mentioned in the last session, that is your choice. You have to place yourself, position yourself, and you are responsible for your choice. And according to the choice you make, you have to play those roles properly. So according to the role of the lady in the house, the role of the man in the house, the mother, the father, the son, the daughter, grandmother, grandfather, everyone will have their role. So you decide where you want to position yourself in this spectrum. And then accordingly, all these other questions, household chores, this, that, all will get settled. Also the financial part. The wife also has to work if there's really such a financial pressure. So you have to think, if I'm trying to follow a traditional model, then do both need to work? But then the financial situation is such that both need to work. So you have to think about these things and rethink your financial planning, that do I really need so much money? And so on. So now look at it from the perspective of all this. And these are questions you will have to sit and discuss in your family and try to work out. I'm giving you basic guidelines so that you can arrive at those conclusions. That is the reason I had this breakout session for the traditional versus modern family life. And the last point is of children. This was also a major category of concerns that came up from all of you. The generation gap between the children and the elders. many children being rebellious, the association of non-devotee kids on our kids, the influence of the Western culture or the modern culture upon our children. Should they be engaged in extracurricular activities or not? If so, which and for how long and how much? What role models do they have? What is the role of the father in parenting? Parenting is a tough task, no doubt. I can say by looking at your experiences. There is a book published by a Pune temple called The Art of Parenting. Just recently published and released on the day of the inauguration. So they asked me to write a foreword for that. So I wrote a foreword. In that foreword, I shared one little anecdote which I had some experience many years ago. I had gone to the house of a senior Grihastha devotee. Very nice devotee, preacher, everything, dedicated. And I was in his living room, and right there was a big printed poster. A poster that was commercially available with a nice natural scenery in the background, and there was a statement there. And it said, by the time you realize your parents were right, you have children who think you are wrong. Then I could understand that he was having problems with his son, his teenage son, and he had put up this poster for the son's benefit, so that the son could be educated to understand this point. Of course, this is a natural thing. Yes, it always happens. And also, as I was discussing earlier somewhere, that do you know why God has made children in this world? To destroy the ego of the parents. Yes, you can't have ego when your child is around. When the child wants something, the child wants it. That's it. You have your own plans, you have your own desires. It's all left to one side. Even Hiranyakashipu couldn't control Prahlad. The most powerful man in the universe could not control a 5-year-old boy. He could control the demigods, but he could not control his own son. So this is the nature of this world. So bringing up children is always, not always, but more often than not, there is a lot of anxiety involved. It needs a lot of skills. It needs a lot of patience, tolerance. It needs, above all, a lot of Krishna consciousness. And it needs cooperation. All family members have a role to play in bringing up the children. And when you have a modern type of family set up, or a modern culture in which a traditional family setup may be in, where the children are exposed to too much of a modern civilization, or too much of the modern civilization, then these kind of problems come in. The generation gap and rebellious children and so on. You have to do practically what it takes to deal with that. But fundamentally, if right from childhood the parents set a good example for the child, so that the child can see a good role model for him. Where is this coming from?
Mobile.
Somebody's mobile? I don't have a mobile. So
Somebody's mobile.
Okay. Where was I? Role model. The children are always looking for role models. And the first role models are always the parents. The parents have to set the good example. That is the responsibility, first and foremost. Then everything follows. You know that little joke about The boy who picked up the phone, somebody wanted to speak to his father. He said, "Can I speak to your father?" The boy goes to the father and says, "Such and such is called for you." Father says, tell him I'm not at home." He picks up the phone and tells the man, "My father says he's not at home." And then, so what has the father taught the child? He's taught him to lie. So he thinks it's okay to tell lies. It starts from there. So we have to set the proper example in terms of everything we do. That is a very important thing. And secondly, with a lot of concern and care to bring up the child, it's a very, very important Grihastha duty. One of the most important duties of a Grihastha is that you bring forth into this world children who will become noble human beings and ultimately very Krishna conscious and make their life perfect. So this is our responsibility. So as Grihasthas, all of you will have to apply your mind. You will have to sit together and cooperate with each other and collectively tackle so many problems that you have. Collectively group, make some arrangements for them to have some entertainment, take them out somewhere, have some classes for them separately, as you're already doing. Many things, nice things are going on. So all that should continue. And children need association of children of their age at every level. Even in the teens, they will need to be with teenagers. Young adults need to be with young adults. So somehow we have to try to inculcate or to create these kind of favorable situations in our devotee community. An association of non-devotee kids is unavoidable to some degree because they will go to school, they will go outside. So you have to compensate for that by giving them a lot of association of devotees, devotee children, plus general devotee association, so that they will not get too affected by the association of non-devotees. Again, it's a question of what kind of a civilizational model that we have chosen. In the early days, everything was so simple, but now life has changed a lot. People could come in and go in anybody's house, children were free. It wasn't like you had just one family. The neighbor's house was also like the child's family. The child would walk into the neighbor's homes. It was all so free and nice and such a wonderful atmosphere. So, raising children is not only something that the parents can do of that particular child, it's also the other people around who have to help. Just as for raising your children, you need help from others, so also you should be of help to others in raising their children. In this cooperative way, you'll be able to tackle together the problems that you face. Srila Prabhupada used to give the example of a bundle of sticks. If you take one stick and then break it against your knee or your thigh, then it'll break easily. But if you take a bundle of the same sticks and then you smash it against your thigh, it will not break. So Prabhupada gave this example to illustrate that unity is strength. So you can have strength for yourselves and for your children if you work unitedly as a group of devotees. Help each other in all your different areas of need. And children are, of course, a very important part of that. So children itself is a big topic. There's a lot to do for that. But I have just given some broad ideas. I think we'll stop here, and there's lots of questions coming in. So I'll have to answer these questions. So we have another few minutes. So I'll try to deal with the questions. Can you please elaborate on chapter 3 of Teachings of Prahlad, Family Illusion? Oh, that's a very long subject. But that I somewhat dealt with in the very first session of how we should not become too attached, because then that becomes illusion. Therefore, such family life is compared to a deep, dark well. And in family life, we should be very, very humble. Humble and dependent on Krishna, that I am here in this family life where there's every possibility of getting attached. So please bestow your mercy upon me, that I should not fall into illusion. I should not be in a deep, dark well. The gopis of Vrindavan, they pray, Ahushchate nalinanabha padarvindam Yogeshwara hridi vichintyam magada bodhai Samsara kopa patitottaranavalambam Geham jushamapi manasyudya sadanaha. The gopis are praying, Lord, my dear Krishna, your lotus feet are sought after by big yogis and jnanis, and they undergo a great struggle in trying to bring your lotus feet into their hearts, and are many times unsuccessful. So what to speak of us who are simple village ladies living in household life? So please deliver us from this samsara kupa, from this well of material existence, and place your lotus feet in our hearts. So this should be the attitude of a Grihastha. Actually of any person, any devotee, not just a Grihastha, but particularly because the gopis are saying, Geham Jusham, we are ordinary Grihasthas living at home, attached to family affairs, in a deep dark well. So please bestow this mercy that your lotus feet may manifest in our hearts. So we have to be always in a prayerful mood like this to Krishna, that we do not become overly attached to our family situation. Why do great devotees like Lord Brahma and great sage Narada force the Lord to appear? Not force. It is that they plead with the Lord to appear so that the people of this world may be delivered, because they are very great devotees, very compassionate. Can you please lead chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra for 15 minutes around the parikrama of the Scout Center so that we can... Okay, so basically saying we should do Harinam Sankirtan, Nagar Sankirtan here inside. Okay, we'll see in a few minutes where we stand with respect to time. I don't know if I should read this question. It's a little too explicit. Perhaps it's a too private a question. I should not, I think, raise this. But anyway, the question is of the spouse doing some things which are very, very unpleasant, immoral. So how should we deal with it? Well, I will not go into the specific acts mentioned here, but we should, it depends whether the spouse is a devotee or not. But if the spouse is a practicing devotee, then of course the devotee will be very willing to hear and understand. And if the spouse is not a devotee, then it may make things a little difficult. But with a little prayer, with some Krishna conscious advice, and a little help from friends, these things can be gradually overcome. Modern society has a number of other families, blended families, gay relationships, etc. Can they come under Krishna consciousness? And if so, how? Everyone can become a devotee. Even if there's, let's say, a gay family, and they want to come to Krishna consciousness, we are not going to stop them coming to Krishna consciousness. We are not going to say, because you're gay, you can't chant Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna chanting is for everyone. We want anyone and everyone to chant Hare Krishna and become a pure devotee. But of course, we cannot recognize that kind of a relationship. That is the issue. So the problem is not with the person, The problem is with that kind of relationship, which we would not be able to encourage it. So how the movement will deal with this phenomenon as time goes by is a difficult question. Because these days there's so much of all this happening. Is it okay for a lady to chant with a timer, not on beats, so she can do housework and chant, otherwise house won't be clean? It is more important to clean the heart than to clean the house. If your heart is clean, then your house will also be cleaned. You will clean it properly, nicely. So no compromise on the chanting. And yes, since we're talking of no compromise on chanting, when we chant, we should be very serious. If you're sitting down on the floor, then sit down in such a way that your back is erect and your hands are on your knees. And if you fold them up and sit like this, then your back will go down and then your head will go down and you will fall asleep. This is the typical thing that happens to most devotees. If you have some other issue for the back and you want to sit in a chair, then make sure you don't become too comfortable, that you fall asleep. Chant sincerely, hear carefully, and your regular rounds, you should not chant when class is going on or when kirtan is going on. Then you should not be with your fingers in your beads, on your beads, in the class or in the kirtan. And certainly you should not be chanting on your beads when you are driving a car. And you should not be chanting on the beads when you're doing anything else like cleaning, vacuuming, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So this type of multitasking is not recommended. You may chant Krishna's name as you're vacuuming, that's all right. But that's your bonus rounds, that's not your 16 rounds. You can keep chanting and singing as you're vacuuming, that's fine. But your rounds you should do carefully, attentively. I work for a restaurant. What is it? At the head office. So I'm not directly involved. The job allows flexibility and a Krishna conscious lifestyle, but it's not ideal in terms of business. What should I do? Can you add this? See what this is? What's it in brackets?
Not eating.
Not eating, okay.
Meat eating, sorry, meat eating.
Meat eating. Oh, so you're working in a meat eating restaurant. You work for a meat eating restaurant at the head office. Okay, so you're not actually in the restaurant, but you're in the head office of that restaurant. So what should you do? Well, again, a difficult question. You see, in this day and age in Kali Yuga, everything is touched by fault. Any job, anything you do has some tint. So everything, even ordinary things we use, I'm sure there's something forbidden here in this what was necessary to make this microphone. There must be something, some animal product, who knows what is involved nowadays, this tape, who knows what is involved. So to some degree it is very difficult to be disconnected from sinful actions or sinful connection in the course of earning our livelihood. But a pure livelihood is very essential for a pure consciousness. So if it is possible, now I don't know how your situation, whoever has asked this question, if you can avoid working in places that have connection where the 4 regulative principles are violated, that is the best of all. And if somehow your finances are in such a critical position that you just can't do without this job, you're not getting another job, then I would advise start looking for a job, and as soon as you get another job, shift over to another suitable job that pays you decently, and at least you will not have to bear this, even though you're not directly involved, but still you're working for this. So if possible, that is a good alternative. Although, as I said, in every company there's something or the other. Nothing is 100% clean at all. The last month, some devotees asked me, they are a software company, a small company they've started. They said, we are getting a project to do a software assignment for a hotel, a 5-star hotel. And in a 5-star hotel there is alcohol. All the 4 regulative principles are violated. So now we are setting up the software for them. They're just contracting it to us. So we are a software company and we're doing business for them. Should we do it? Should we not do it? It's a very difficult question. So finally, after considering the whole situation, exactly what it is that we're getting involved in, and I said, all right, I think you go ahead, because you're just doing a job, you're selling them a product and going, but still I was not very comfortable with it. So there's all these dilemmas in the modern day life which makes everything so complicated. So in answer to your question, I'd say if it's possible, change. If not possible, what to do? Do the best you can in your situation. How do I teach my children Krishna consciousness so they enjoy it? Whenever I try, they prefer to do other things. For example, reading non-Krishna conscious books and so on. Yes, the point you've raised is important, that we should try to make Krishna consciousness fun for children. And not just for children, even for adults it should be fun. So that they enjoy it, so that adults also find some higher taste and some pleasure in this. We should be doing things that we like to do. So try to focus in such a way that you can engage your child with the help of other parents, so that your children can be engaged together. You have listed so many positives of Grihastha Ashram. Why have you chosen to be a sannyasi? Because I haven't discussed too many of the negative aspects in the... Maybe I'm not strong enough, like all of you, to face the troubles of Grihastha life. So we do take the easy way out. What should be the most important thing to do in spiritual life if we can't do everything? Associate with devotees and chant Hare Krishna. And take prasadam and hear Krishna conscious katha. Can the child be sent to child care centers so both parents can work and meet financial needs? Or should the family cut down the expense, even selling mortgage house and rent a house, so that the child grows at home and follows Krishna consciousness? Now you have to see, take the decision based on our discussion on traditional versus modern family life. Where do you want to be? Where is your priority? Is your priority on giving a child good consciousness? Where is your priority? You select. So you have to decide. For most of you, the answer may be easy. For many of you, it may not be easy, depending on the specifics of the financial crisis. If the crisis of the financial need is really acute, you might want to do that in a short term. But it is always advisable that child rearing is not a part-time activity, it is a full-time activity. And if you're able to give all your time to your children, it will bear sweet fruit. My spouse spends every waking moment on Facebook. He says he's preaching. Well, the question is to whom, anyway. Thus, we have no communication in our household. What can you advise us? I have to be very careful not getting into trouble before I leave Sydney. That's why I said this computer. That's why my formula, I fed up phone, iPhone, no, I fed up phone. It's ruining lives. This modern civilization is making everybody so impersonal. Now everybody is just on the computer, and when the real human beings, we don't have time for them. Because we're too busy with machines. So the Shantaras, the perverted form of the Shantaras, is more prevalent. And the Dasya, Madhurya, Vatsalya, etc. is no place now. Everyone relates to machines better, the cars, the computers, the phones. I think it is advisable to reduce the Facebook. And doesn't matter if the preaching reduces. Better let us set a good example and preach in that way. How Harinam, street Harinam is effective? Because you spread the holy name everywhere. All can get the benefit. Okay, quick question here also. You speak of detachment, but how does one deal with a partner who is too detached and thus neglects family responsibilities in the claim of doing the priority of chanting, etc.? Detachment does not mean dereliction of duty. Detachment does not mean negligence of one's responsibilities. One may be detached, but one has to do what is necessary. We have signed up for this program to enter into a certain ashram. So we have to do it. We signed up for the Grihastha Ashram, so we have to do it. We signed up for the Sannyasa Ashram, we have to do what it takes. So whatever is necessary, you have to do. In the name of preaching, yes, chanting may be there, but then you have to learn how to adjust it in such a way that all your 6 departments will be balanced. Sometimes we feel happy we're making progress or becoming better devotees. Are these proud thoughts? Not necessarily. We feel that yes, we are happier in our Krishna consciousness and so on, and that is good. That gives us some encouragement. I would like to know about proper ways to deal with a non-devotee husband and make him understand the benefit of Krishna consciousness. Yes, it is very hard to maintain physical health, to try to please the husband and do Krishna consciousness together. Yes, the general points I mentioned earlier, so you'll have to see it in connection with that. As far as specific things may be concerned, you will have to discuss with some devotees and talk about specific problems. Is it okay to practice art of living, meditation alongside Krishna consciousness? But Krishna consciousness is the art of living. So you don't need to live in any other way. This is enough. If a wife is initiated from some other sampradaya before getting married and the husband is following ISKCON, what does a wife need to do? Should she follow the same guru and sampradaya which was before, or she needs to change? What if there is no possibility of changing the sampradaya, as she has full faith in her previous sampradaya? Well, everything has to happen naturally, isn't it? Nothing can be forced. You cannot hold somebody to gunpoint and say, you should follow my sampradaya. But this thing should have been thought of before the marriage. Or perhaps one partner was not a devotee before the marriage and now it has happened. Then you have to think that it is Krishna's arrangement and do the best you can in relation to the guidelines that I offered earlier. So I think that's a lot. We have crossed our time limit. So I really want to thank our team of devotees who have done so much hard work to organize this retreat, even despite so many difficulties. I don't know how many names I should mention, just in case I forget to mention a few names. I don't know everybody else involved. So I'm hesitating to say any names. But all of you would know who are those involved. And the core team with Asim and Rajeshwari, Samriddhi and some other devotees were there. Himanga Chaitanya and several others who worked a lot. So I want to heartily thank them for having made such wonderful arrangements, coordinating everything so nicely. Mohit and many others have been in the cooking, and many of you have offered so many services during this program, this retreat. So I'd like to heartily thank all of you. And also I'd like to thank all of you for having come here to participate in this program. If none of you were here, there would be no retreat. So thank you for your very enthusiastic and active and eager participation in this retreat. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.